Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Brad Hawkins. Brad Hawkins has been with ServicePower since 2004, where he currently serves as Senior Vice President of Products and Solutions, overseeing operations, development, and product management. He's a longtime veteran in the world of field service technology, and Brad brings more than 20 years of experience in workforce management software. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right into this conversation with Brad. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. I'm very excited to do this. Thanks for having me.
Great. Now, Brad, before we start off our conversation with our guests, we always like to give them an opportunity to share in their own words a little bit about their journey. How is it that you got to where you are today? And, just in your own words, why you're doing what you're doing and how you got there.
Why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's an interesting journey for me as somebody who's been with ServicePower for a long time, and in field service in general, even longer, because I started out as a self-taught programmer. I had sort of one other career job before coming to the field service world, which was all about data management. I worked down in the Caribbean where we had very innovative ways this was back in the 90s, of how we captured data across various mechanisms. The biggest being intelligent character recognition, where you're scanning things and I can intelligently read what I can decipher off of a piece of paper. And in that job coming to an end, I came back from living in the Caribbean. It was in need of finding work, and I ended up at a place called Key Prestige, which was then acquired by ServicePower. But that was where we built a warranty management platform. And that was my first foray into the world of field service. It was understanding how, there's this world out there of workforces that are out in the field. How do you optimize them best? How do you use an employee versus an independent contractor? And in building out that initial platform, we then became part of the ServicePower world. Along that journey, I ran development. I've since run our consulting and professional services organizations. I'm on my second tour running product, but we then combine those platforms, again, with the sort of the ServicePower ecosystem to provide all these various ways of field service solutions, where, sort of a big differentiator of ServicePower is, do I work with an employed workforce, or do I work with independent contractors, and what's the best way to do that? So just over time, I've had new and interesting challenges at ServicePower. I've been able to take on other areas, and I've got to work basically across the business. I work very closely with, I run product, but I still work very closely from a development standpoint. I'm working with marketing and sales all the time. So it's still exciting to me as a long timer, but that's kind of how I got there.
All right. So you've done a lot of work in field service. Could you explain to our listeners a little bit about what field service is exactly? Maybe just break down some examples of what types of work does that entail?
Yep, I'll give you a couple of examples of some industries, but specifically when you think about, I'm an end consumer and I have a product or a service that requires someone to come out and do some type of service. And, there are organizations then who have these workforces that they leverage. So an example would be very simple homeowner example. I'm in my house, I'm an end consumer, I've got a refrigerator, it breaks. Who do I call? Is it in warranty? Is it under a service contract? Depending on that, that's going to determine, let's say it's Electrolux, I'm going to call them and go, my fridge, I'm having an issue, it's not cooling. They make the decision, we're going to send a resource to your house to fix that. So the entire process of entitling that service event, the transparency to the consumer of everything that's going on. If you think about those events happening on a larger scale, the optimization of that workforce to gain efficiencies, identifying contractors in the moment to say who's the right guy to go out and run this job, ensuring people are getting reimbursed for their work properly from the proper organization. And again, just to come back up a little bit high level there, think of that across multiple industries. So major appliance, consumer electronics, actually anybody who has a home warranty and any products in their home, the insurance industry who has adjusters for, you may have a catastrophe event and have a need to call up your homeowner's insurance. They're going to come out and do inspections. It can get larger, apartments, facilities. They have needs for workforces to come in and do inspections, repairs, any of that really. So it's any organization that has a field workforce, whether that workforce is employed or they're leveraging independent businesses. The goal of a field service platform should be, how do I optimize that? How do I ensure a world-class customer experience along the way? How do I defend my brand along the way? But that's high level, I hope.
Right, yes. So you
We do
touched
talk
on
about.
you touched on quite a few things. So field service is definitely something I believe that all consumers at some point will have to engage in throughout the course of their lifetime. How has it been for you on the end of, as you mentioned, optimizing to get the best experience when you have to deal with so many different personalities? And I hear you mention that you lived in the Caribbean for a while. Would you mind sharing with our listeners which Caribbean island or country that was?
Yeah, and I was going to ask you. I feel like your accent's got to be Caribbean. I could be wrong, but yes, I lived in Grenada for about a year.
Right. So I am Caribbean. I'm Jamaican. I am
Oh, nice.
currently in Kingston, Jamaica.
Oh, nice.
And here in Kingston, Jamaica, just listening to you speak just now about the fact that you would have a fridge, for example, and the fridge breaks down, and you call the person that you purchased the fridge from, especially if the fridge is still under warranty. I found, for example, in Jamaica, contract persons like plumbers, carpenters, painters, like those kinds of tradespeople, they're highly unreliable. They tell you they're going to come tomorrow and probably you'll see them in another 2 weeks. You have to be constantly following up with them. And I find the service experience to be extremely poor. What has your experience been? And do you find it differs based on maybe the culture of the country, or how do you optimize for a great experience with all of those variables that are so uncontrollable?
So culture and geography does matter, but it does. It absolutely matters. As again, as somebody who lived in the Caribbean, I know the differences there. As a company, ServicePower, we're very prominent in North America, but also in Europe. We're rolled out in multiple countries in Europe. The geography and sort of the interaction that the customer can have can change. But the key that we try to push along the way is, you're going to have a better experience if you understand how best to interact with the resources involved, or I'll give you a word that we use in the product world, is the personas involved. So I have to understand that I have an end consumer who has expectations of a level of service. I have to provide a way for that consumer to have full transparency of everything that's going on. One of the things I think is, in our world today, it's very clear that consumers, they want to know up to the minute what exactly is going on in any event they're doing, whether it's where's my pizza that's on the way to my house, where's my Uber. Same thing. When I book a technician to come out to my home, I want to know everything that's going on. If he's trying to order a part and it's delayed, you have to give full transparency to that. That's better than not hearing anything. It's like you said, you're constantly having to follow up. So one of the key things is to have a system that is very proactive and is going to inform the consumer and keep them in the loop of everything that's going on, all the way up to the point of, I'm on my way, I'm en route, and ensuring that the resource that you do send, how do I ensure in the moment, how do I make sure in the moment that that's the best possible resource that's going to provide the best possible outcome for that end consumer. And again, that's all about what the ServicePower platform does. Is it understands whether it's an employee or a contractor. If it's a contractor, who is the contractor that is performing to the level that I expect them to, so I can rate and rank them. It's really about those principles.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right. So you've mentioned optimizing for a better customer experience and the fact that you have real time, up to date information for the client so they know every step of the way what's happening. As you mentioned, if the person is en route, if a part has been ordered, that kind of stuff. So artificial intelligence is pretty big now, right? There's the chat GPTs, there's Bing search engine, there are lots of them, and lots of organizations are using the AI to integrate into their current systems to make it smarter, to make it bolder, to make it more informative for consumers. Can you share with us what you've seen AI's role been in elevating field service to create better customer experiences?
Absolutely. And I'll add another term in there along with AI, which is machine learning. It's very much in the forefront of what everybody's doing these days. But in the world of field service, again, if you think of that service event, when somebody, whether it's they make the phone call, they go on a website to schedule service, for self-service, it's in that moment, based on what I know about that event, what can I predict? That's what AI and machine learning offer in our world. And that's the biggest one right now is if I know it's this product, this model, this is the description of what is being told to me that's wrong. And I can even then look at past repair history. How can I just use AI to predict, well, the technician I need to send out likely needs these three parts, or I can triage them. I can give them some information to say, try this first, try that. And it's using AI and machine learning to make those intelligent predictions. What we've really learned about it is people are using historical data to do that today. It's really about building the feedback loop of as you continue to get that data and ensure that the model you've created continues to learn over time. But again, another good field service term for this is if you can make those predictions intelligently and I can send a tech out with everything he needs ahead of time, that ensures a first time fix rate. Because again, imagine when your contractor comes out, he looks at it, he goes, oh, I don't have the parts on the truck. I'll reschedule you for next Tuesday. That's a bad experience. So using AI and machine learning, we can make the predictions of how do I ensure you have all the tools you need so that when you get on site, you are ensured of doing a first time quality fix, because that will lead to a happy customer.
All right. Could you also share with us maybe, I would say, let's say 1 to 3 different types of solutions that you've seen that have been pretty innovative in the whole field service space? Maybe, especially since we've been emerging out of the pandemic, have you seen things being done differently, more efficiently? Are there trends that you're seeing you think organizations should be tapping into more in order to improve on their service delivery? Or has your company been pioneering that in any way?
Well, I think we've certainly pioneered it. There's two things I'll talk about there, because there's actually not that many field service companies that have, we have already thrown around the term optimization. And every company will tell you they do optimization, but what we've learned and we've seen is there's some specific definitions of things you need to be able to do to truly optimize a workforce. And there really, again, not many companies that actually do it. So when I talk about optimization, imagine an employed workforce. So let's just take North America as an example. If I were to have 2,000 resources across North America, I've got jobs where I have to offer up appointments to consumers. I may have SLAs for inspections. So a job comes in where I've got to be there in 3 days. That's my agreed upon contractual SLA. But I have emergency jobs that may be coming in throughout the day. True optimization, and one of the things we offer is we can continually evaluate a schedule that's been built out over time. And that's one of the ways where we use AI. We use a specific algorithm as part of that to be constantly evaluating that schedule. And as events are coming in, I can sort of rip that schedule apart, move jobs around, understand what's the best possible, most optimal schedule for all of my resources across however many jobs I have. And that's running constantly throughout the day. When most field service organizations tell you they do optimization, what they're really doing is, well, I have an optimized route. Like I went to Google Maps and I made sure that my team's going on an optimized route. And that's fine. They can use the term optimization for that, but that doesn't necessarily take into account things like, you can have your route, you can have drive time. Is there access hours to a particular building? You may be going in and doing a apartment maintenance or facilities maintenance, and there's access hours. What's the cost of overtime? And am I considering that in the schedule? Just the schedule in general of my techs, the knowledge and skills that those techs have. Again, how do I ensure that I'm taking all of that account into the schedule I'm creating? And again, that's sort of what creates that. Again, that's how we refer to optimization. We know others use the term, but they're not doing AI-based optimization like we are, that can really be based on any number of parameters. that our clients want to use, the sort of the KPIs that drive the business, right? The important key indicators of the business. We can do all of those with AI.
Yeah.
So that would be one of them. The other one that, again, this is technology and just sort of a general shift in where field service has gone, is most software platforms that relate to field service, they sort of choose one method of solving the problem or another. And the two main ones are, do I have an employed workforce, or do I leverage independent businesses? And where most make a mistake, and what we've really driven in the field service world, I would even tell you, I feel like ServicePower is the one who has been on the forefront of this all along, is the idea that you have to understand both of those types of organizations work very differently, but you still have to be able to blend them together, because whether I send my own employee or an independent business, I have to ensure that the experience is exactly the same for the customer. Again, when I employ someone, I have control of their schedule. I can dictate technology to them. I know everything about them. When I'm working with an independent business, I sort of have to be able to rate them and score them based on how they perform for me. And I have to know, like, okay, you're an independent business. I have to authorize you to work for me, which means I want to ensure you're background checked. You've been through all the proper trainings. And again, some of those terms I talked about. What are your first time fix rates? What are your costs? I need the transparency to see into that business, because I'm only giving them maybe 10% of the work they actually do, right? They're not dedicated to me. So one of the things, again, that we think we brought to the world of field service and we continue to innovate on is, how can I have a rules engine around that understands I've got two different types of workforces I'm working with, but I'm going to provide one unified world-class customer experience where that customer doesn't know any different. He doesn't know that it's an independent business who showed up. He just thinks, hey, again, my GE product or my LG product, I got it fixed. They did it the first time. That's all that matters. It was a great experience. So, yeah, that's a couple there. Do you want me to try to come up with one more?
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing, Brad. All right. So, we've spoken a lot about optimization and what are some of the pioneering I would say talents and attributes that ServicePower has been demonstrating, and those are excellent, really a good way for us to dovetail into my next question. And so we'd like to know if you could share with us, Brad, because it's all about the tools and resources that you're using to ensure that you're being most efficient in whatever task you're completing. Could you share with our audience what's the online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in running your business every day?
Yeah. So in running the business, I mean, I can name some tools here, but I'll tell you they all have a common theme, which is tools that provide analytics. We live in a data-driven world, and understanding the analytics underneath your business are crucial. And some examples of that, again, when you think of ServicePower as a software company, I'll start by coming at it from the development side. We have to know exactly the velocity of our development staff. We have to know how much time they're spending on which initiatives. Are we putting our time into innovation and roadmap versus support and issues, implementation, whatever? We can break all that down. That way we can plan and forecast for the future, what directions we want to go. I mean, obviously from an analytics standpoint, sales and pipeline matter in that. So we have a bunch of tools underneath that. I mean, we obviously use things like HubSpot as it relates to sales and marketing, and there is a component of Salesforce we use for that. For the development side, there's a couple tools we use, Jira being one to sort of track, and it facilitates us gathering that data. We actually have our own. Well, I say our own. It's a tool that we use called Domo, that it's basically a data warehouse with an analytics engine over the top of it. So from our use, again, anything related to analytics, and that's the other thing I would tell you beyond just our business, is we then have to take all that data that comes out of our platform and present it the same way to our clients, where they can see how is your network performing? How are your employees performing? What's your customer satisfaction? I'll just give you one example of that. There was sort of a great story at ServicePower was, we came out, it's probably been about 3 or 4 years, but we came out with our consumer portal. That's where consumers are notified of everything of their service event. They can be driven into a portal, which gives them information about it. One of the great key value points of that was our clients who are receiving calls from consumers, just like you said, going, where's my contractor?
Mm-hmm.
Their call center volume went, we were able to show through our analytics that their call center volume went down by 40% when we put that tool out there to say, I can now have a system that's informing the consumer. There's no need for them to call you because they feel informed. So, again, back to the question, I would just tell you anything analytics based. So again, data-driven world, and you want to be on top of the things that are driving your business through analytics.
Excellent. Could you also share with our listeners maybe one or two books that have had a great impact on you? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago, or even one that you've read recently, but it definitely has impacted on your professional competencies as a chief solutions officer.
Sure, I'll tell you mine, because in my schooling days, long ago, I sort of became very enthusiastic about the idea of culture in business.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book called The Culture Code. It's by Daniel Coyle, and it is all about how do I build a culture that brings your workforce together,
Mm-hmm.
has you all enthusiastic about working towards a common goal. It gives you the tools for that. I think, I read it a couple of years back. In my opinion, it's more relevant now because after, post-pandemic, you have people who are disconnected, a lot more people working at home, and it just gives you tools of how do you bring about a workforce that they're just as much invested in the mission and the goals as you are. So that's the book I would recommend. It's called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle.
Awesome. All right, so we'll have the link to that book in the show notes of this episode. Could you also share with our listeners, Brad, what's one thing that's going on in your life right now that you're really excited about? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Oh boy. For me, I'll give a personal one because this is a podcast, and I find podcasts can be fun that way, and
Yep.
I'll try to give you both. But for me, I'm in a kind of a new transition in life. Maybe I shouldn't say this to the public. I'm 53 years old. I'm kind of through the pandemic, had some struggles in life, and started reinventing things with a new blended family. And so for me personally, I feel like I'm getting another round of, being a dad again. My children are grown. So yeah, personally, that's very important to me. I'm a huge believer in family and creating a tight knit family, and so that's a big thing for me. From a work standpoint, I'll just tell you that, ServicePower has been around a long time, but it does feel like we're always on sort of the edge of innovation as it relates to field service. And this is a year that we actually talked about of heavy investment from our ownership. So it's an exciting year from the things we're building. We're kind of reimagining the entire user experience of the platform. So we find that very exciting. So even in my 20 plus years that I've been doing this, I still find it rewarding, exciting, the initiatives we're driving. So yeah, again, I've done this for a long time, but I'm hopefully you're getting that from this podcast, is that I'm still very passionate about all of it.
Of course, definitely. All right. So, our listeners would have tapped into this episode, Brad, and they would like to learn more about ServicePower. They probably even want to connect with you. Where can they find you online?
So for the business, it's as simple as going to servicepower.com, and you'll learn everything about us, see use cases on there, and you can get in touch with our people if you want to check out servicepower.com. For me personally, I would just suggest look me up on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, and got all my contact information there. That would be the best way to do it.
Awesome. All right, before we wrap our episodes up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to get you back on track if for any reason you got derailed.
I do. Let me quickly look it up. I did this on a previous one I did.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just take me a second because I missed to be prepared for that one. Yeah, it'll just take a second. I almost have it up here. Okay. This is one of my favorite quotes. Matter of fact, I will tell you that all of the people at ServicePower have heard this multiple times from me. Oh, that didn't show it. Let's try this one. Here we go. Okay. This is the quote. Anyone who imagines that bliss is normal is going to waste a lot of time running around shouting that they've been robbed. Most putts don't drop. Most beef is tough. Most children grow up to be just people. Most successful marriages require a high degree of mutual toleration. Most jobs are often dull than otherwise. Life is like an old-time rail journey. There's delays, sidetracks, smoke, and dust, interspersed only occasionally by beautiful vistas and thrilling bursts of speed. The trick is to be thankful that you were on the ride. I love that quote.
All right. And do you know the author of the quote? Is it anonymous?
I've seen a couple people attributed to it. The person I knew that said it, his name is Gordon B. Hinckley.
Okay. All right. So we will have that full quote in the notes of this episode. Awesome. So we captured quite a bit of things today with Brad. We looked at field service. We looked at some of the different activities that persons will engage with field services or field service teams. We looked at ServicePower and the fact that, they're launched across most of North America and quite a bit across Europe, and all the great things that they're doing and pioneering in the field service space. We looked at some trends in that space and how it is that you can use optimization in order to create that magical customer experience, that it's seamless, it's frictionless, and it just makes the customer's experience that much better in having their issue resolved. So Brad really jumped in and pioneered this and really shared some great insights with our audience today. So thank you so much, Brad, for taking time out of your schedule and having this conversation with us.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Just want to remind our listeners to follow us on Twitter. Our handle is NavigatingCX. And if you'd like to take the conversation a little bit deeper, feel free to jump on Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.